Welcome back, or maybe welcome home. Tonight, I want you to do something a little unusual. I want you to let go. Let go of the emails waiting to be answered, the notifications lighting up your phone, the endless scroll of the present day. For the next little while, I'm going to take you back, not just to a year, but to a moment, a very specific one, summer of 2003. You may not remember exactly where you were when the lights went out that August, but your body does. That feeling of time slowing down, of sitting still, of hearing nothing but the people in your home and the outside world quieting for once. You're about to return to the warm, candlelit living room of the 2003 Blackout. So settle in, let your shoulders drop, let your eyes rest, and let's go back. It was just another hot August day, the kind that clung to your skin before you even made it to the kitchen for breakfast. You might remember the hum of the ceiling fan overhead, lazily spinning against the heat. Outside, the sky was a soft, unbothered blue, and the sun was already high, casting long shadows and bouncing off the hood of your neighbor's car like a spotlight. The air was thick with a cocktail of summer scents, freshly cut grass, warm pavement, distant BBQ smoke, and melted popsicles dripping down kids' wrists. There was a kind of slow rhythm to the day, a pace that only exists in childhood summers or forgotten weekends. If you listened closely, you might have heard the whir of a window AC unit struggling to keep up, or the buzz of a cicada in the background. In one house, the back door creaked open. Someone stepped onto the porch in flip-flops, holding a glass of Crystal Light or Sunny D. The ice clinked against the sides. In another home, a landline rang, its cordless handset wedged into the couch cushion, half lost beneath a stack of magazines. TVs played quietly in the background. Maybe it was reruns of Maury, TRL, or Judge Judy. You probably passed by the screen without thinking much. Hearing the faint voice of Carson Daly announce the latest Beyoncé video, Crazy in Love was everywhere. That beat was in every store, every passing car, every party mix CD made on someone's gateway desktop using Nero burning ROM. 50 Cent was the soundtrack of the summer. In Dog Club blared from cars with rolled down windows. And if you were lucky, your Discman didn't skip every time you walked. LimeWire downloads took forever, but when the songs finally finished, it felt like a victory. You might have been waiting for someone to call, or more realistically, to message you on MSN. Your status said something like, BRB, shower, then food, or included a quote from Simple Plan or Evanescence. Emo was slowly entering the scene, and so were Livestrong bracelets, Von Dutch hats, and glittery phone charms hanging off Nokia bricks. If you had siblings, they were probably hogging the one family computer, sitting in a faux leather rolling chair while eating pizza bagels and trying to print something off of Ask Jeeves. Someone always forgot to log off AIM, so their status stayed green for hours. There was no such thing as screen time yet. Outfits were loud and layered, camis under tank tops, trucker hats, basketball shorts to the knees, and low-rise jeans that had no business staying up. Platform flip-flops were practically a safety hazard, and frosted lip gloss was standard issue. On the front porch, maybe your dad was clipping hedges while listening to ESPN radio. A kid on a Razor scooter zipped by. The ice cream truck made its rounds, blasting an off-key, tinny version of Turkey in the straw. If you were old enough, you were just starting to get used to the idea of texting. Each key press made a satisfying click. Predictive text was still hit or miss. You knew the code to get an uppercase letter, press the button 3 times, and you'd sit there under the sun, texting LOL back and forth until your prepaid minutes ran dry. There was comfort in the slow burn of the day. You knew what time it was by the shows on TV or the way the sunlight hit the kitchen counter. It was a day like many others, and yet it was the last completely normal one before everything paused. A little after 4 p.m., the world would go dark. But you didn't know that yet. For now, you were just living another summer day in 2003. And if you close your eyes, you can still smell the sunscreen, taste the watermelon, and feel the breeze from a box fan that sat humming in the hallway. It started subtly, almost unnoticeable, like a hesitation in a song you know by heart. A flicker, a pause, just long enough to make you tilt your head, but not long enough to act. Around 4:10 p.m., the lights dipped once, then again, then silence. That strange blanketing kind of silence that only settles when the world powers down all at once. It wasn't just the lights, it was everything. The fan stopped spinning, the hum of the fridge disappeared, the familiar whir of the desktop in the other room was gone. No clicks, no pings, no buzzes. It was like someone hit the mute button on a whole planet. You waited, maybe for a second, then 2. Then you glanced around, puzzled. At first, you thought it might have been something simple, a blown fuse. Maybe the AC and the microwave running at the same time. You checked the microwave clock. It was blank. You opened the freezer, felt a little gust of cold air, and immediately closed it again, suddenly protective of its contents. How long would it all stay frozen? Would you have to eat everything? Out of instinct, you looked out the window, but something felt different out there too. The street lamps were dark. The stoplight down the block was dead. You stepped outside. One by one, doors creaked open on your block. Neighbors slowly emerged, some holding cordless phones, others just peeking their heads out, eyes squinting into the brightness. There was something oddly theatrical about it, like a scene out of a stage play, everyone appearing on cue. "Do you have power?" Someone called out. "Nope. Maybe it's just this side of the street." A woman down the road held a flip phone in the air, walking in slow circles, trying to get a signal. Others just tried to refresh their pagers, but nothing was coming through. If you were a kid, you might have already been playing outside, holding a super soaker, biking around in a circle, chalking up the driveway. But now you stood still, noticing the way adults were suddenly alert, the casual summer mood shifting into something uncertain. It didn't take long before words like blackout and grid failure started floating through the air. You heard someone say it reached all the way to New York. Someone else said they heard it stretched up into Ottawa and parts of Michigan. You turned to the drawer in the kitchen that held everything: rubber bands, expired batteries, takeout menus, and that dusty old AM/FM radio. You turned the dial, static, static, then a voice, barely there, finally cutting through. Massive power outage affecting large parts of Ontario and the northeastern United States. Conserve water. More updates to follow. It was real, but the strange thing, no one panicked. The world paused. There was no Wi-Fi to check, no apps to refresh. Cell phones, barely reliable on a good day in 2003, were useless. Text stalled, calls failed. The bars on your phone slowly vanished, so people stood still. They sat on front steps, leaned on porch railings, wandered onto sidewalks and driveways, and in that moment, the world felt quieter than it had in years. No TV static, no commercials, no leaf blowers, just bird song. A breeze rustling the tree leaves, the occasional creak of a screen door. A dog barked 3 blocks away, and you actually heard it. And suddenly, things came into focus. The warmth of the bricks on your porch steps, the distant sound of someone opening a cooler, the way the light dappled through the trees. It was peaceful, and in a way, unnerving, like time was holding its breath. You looked around at people you barely spoke to, the ones you only nodded at while bringing in groceries or checking the mail. But now, here they were, barefoot or in flip-flops, standing in the street, just like you, squinting into the sun. Someone made a joke. Well, guess we're all going Amish for the night. A teenager pulled out a portable CD player, hit play, and smiled when Hot and Hera by Nelly started up. A few kids danced around the sidewalk with popsicles their parents had rushed from the melting freezer. It became a weird kind of neighborhood gathering. People dug out coolers, lawn chairs, and citronella candles. Radios played softly in the background. Conversations drifted through the air, real ones, not texted, not messaged, just spoken, with pauses and eye contact. You remember the smell of the warm pavement, the melting plastic of old lawn chairs, someone lighting a citronella coil, and the feeling that you weren't missing anything for once, because nothing was happening. And that was the magic. It was a rare moment of collective stillness. The digital world slipped away, and we all remembered how to just be. And the most memorable part hadn't even happened yet, because the sun was still up. The real magic would come when the light disappeared, and we found warmth and connection not through screens, but through candles and voices. As daylight faded, the tone of the blackout shifted from curious stillness to quiet coziness. By now, everyone had accepted that the lights weren't coming back anytime soon. The sun was on its final descent, casting an amber glow across rooftops and tree branches. That golden hour light lingered a little longer, as if giving the world a chance to prepare. Inside, your living room slowly transformed. The house, usually lit by TVs, computers, and blinking microwave clocks, now glowed in soft yellows and flickering oranges. You scavenged drawers for candles, not fancy ones, just the ones you had. Birthday candles, tea lights, maybe a half-used cinnamon-scented one from the bathroom. They were set in mugs, saucers, jam jars. You didn't realize until then how beautiful mismatched light could be. It danced gently across the walls and ceiling, creating moving shadows that seemed to sway in time with your breath. The TV, once the centerpiece of the room, now sat like a forgotten monument, quiet, reflective, and blank, a square mirror to your past habits. In its place, something else took center stage. Board games, cards, puzzles, items usually tucked away in a closet came back to life. You remember how odd it felt to play games by candlelight, trying to read tiny instructions while someone held a flashlight just right. And yet, it worked. Somehow, it was enough. The house filled with the sound of shuffling cards, clinking dice, and soft laughter. Your family, scattered during most evenings, each tucked away in separate rooms, was now gathered in one space. There were no distractions, no buzzing alerts, no shows to catch, just faces lit by candlelight, relaxed postures, and the smell of wax and potato chips. Maybe someone dug out a puzzle that had been started and abandoned a year ago. Maybe someone else brought out a stack of old magazines, J14, Tiger Beat, or National Geographic Kids. Pages were flipped slowly, fingers pausing on ads for hit clips, Tamagotchis, and AOL trials. The world outside had paused, and inside, it felt like time traveled backward. There may have been popcorn, popped just before the power cut, a little chewy now, but still strangely comforting, or a bowl of candy hidden in the pantry, unwrapped slowly, the crinkling plastic somehow louder in the quiet. Someone poured glasses of Coke or ginger ale over ice, the fizzing sound adding a layer to the ambiance. Your brother made a dumb joke. Your dad laughed too hard. Your mom rolled her eyes but smiled. You looked around and realized that this stillness, this closeness, was something you hadn't noticed you missed. The radio, now your only window to the outside world, played faintly in the background. The host sounded calm and warm, announcing updates about the blackout interspersed with soft tracks. Norah Jones, maybe Jack Johnson, or acoustic versions of early 2000s hits. The static of the AM/FM band added to the charm. You learned that New York was completely dark. Times Square, normally pulsing with neon and noise, had gone silent. The CN Tower stood unlit for the first time in years. The planet had dimmed, and somehow it made everything glow a little warmer on your block. You pulled out an old flashlight just to draw. You sketched on the back of a cereal box or on printer paper someone found in the drawer. Or maybe you opened a notebook and started journaling for the first time in months, the words flowing more freely than usual. There were no distractions to interrupt your thoughts. Someone in your house told a ghost story or shared a memory from 1995 about Beanie Babies, slap bracelets, or that one family road trip in a minivan with a broken tape deck. Everyone took turns talking. No one checked the time. Time itself felt irrelevant. Outside, you heard footsteps on gravel, the soft murmur of your neighbors talking, the clinking of dishes as someone washed them by hand. A few houses down, someone lit a fire pit, and the faint scent of wood smoke drifted through the air. A battery-powered boombox played quietly in the background. Maybe Where's the Love by Black Eyed Peas or Unwell by Matchbox 20. Songs you hadn't heard in a while, but suddenly remembered every word to. As the night deepened, the candles burned lower. Their flickering got softer, and the shadows stretched longer. The living room became a kind of sacred space, a little sanctuary untouched by the outside world. You wrapped yourself in a throw blanket, legs curled under you, listening to the hush. You noticed the small details, the way the wax pooled around the base of the candle, the gentle creak of the old couch when someone shifted their weight, the warmth in your chest that had nothing to do with temperature. Eventually, you lay back and stared up at the ceiling, now just a soft blur above you. The dark didn't feel cold or empty. It felt full of voices, glances, laughter, and shared breath, full of memories already forming. You didn't know it then, but this night would stick with you. The memory of this exact moment, of vanilla wax, soft couches, gentle shadows, and the sound of your family's voices echoing under candlelight would come back to you one day, years later, when everything had become noisy and fast again. And when it did, you'd smile, because for one night, the world stopped, and in that stillness, you found something that hadn't existed in years. By the time the candle wax had begun to pool and the board games had been packed away, something even more unexpected happened. The conversations began, real ones, the kind that weren't interrupted by phone alerts or background TV noise. There was no multitasking, no just a sec, or hold on, let me check something. For the first time, in what felt like forever, the people you loved were fully there, with you, in the same space, with nowhere else to be. Someone started with a simple question. Remember when we used to go to the lake every summer? And just like that, the stories poured out like melted wax. Your dad told a story you'd never heard before, about how he once crashed his bike into a mailbox trying to impress your mom. You laughed so hard you cried. Then your mom jumped in with a memory of her own. The time she and her best friend in high school got matching haircuts right before picture day and regretted it for years. There was a kind of soft magic to it all. It wasn't just the words being shared. It was the way people leaned in, listened longer, responded more thoughtfully. The candlelight seemed to slow time down. Every pause in conversation felt intentional, like it was giving space for something unspoken to bloom. Your younger sibling, usually glued to a Game Boy or silently scrolling a flip phone, suddenly had stories too, about school, about friends, about how they still remembered the way it felt to lose their Tamagotchi in the park. Even your quiet cousin, the one who never joined in at family dinners, opened up. They shared a poem they'd been working on, scribbled in the margins of a notebook. Someone brought out photo albums, real ones, pages thick with plastic sleeves and handwritten notes in pen. You sat on the floor, flipping through them. There were Halloween costumes made from garbage bags and duct tape, awkward braces-era smiles, and faded school portraits with laser backgrounds. Each photo sparked a memory, which turned into another story and another. The conversation flowed in waves, sometimes light and silly, like the time someone tried to dye their hair blonde with lemon juice and ended up with orange streaks. Other times deeper, like when your aunt quietly admitted how lonely she felt when she moved away in 2001. No one had ever asked her about it before. You realized in those moments that so much had been left unsaid in your everyday life. Not because people didn't want to share, but because no one had slowed down long enough to ask. It was during one of those silences, the soft, glowing kind, that someone said, "Do you ever miss how things used to be?" Everyone nodded, and not just the big things, not just family vacations or first concerts, but the small, overlooked things, like taping songs off the radio, like rewinding VHS tapes before returning them, like reading the backs of cereal boxes while eating breakfast. You remembered how your dad used to fold the newspaper just so he could read the comics and drink his coffee at the same time. You remembered how your mom would hum quietly while folding laundry, the same melody every time. You remembered the sound of dial-up internet, its static song, once annoying, now oddly comforting. The power being out made those memories feel closer somehow, like they had only just happened. Someone asked, "What do you think people are doing in New York right now?" Someone else said, "Probably the same thing we're doing, talking, sitting, listening to the dark." That thought, that millions of other people were having the same kind of night, made you feel small, in the best way, connected, part of something shared. Eventually, the conversations faded to quiet murmurs. People leaned back into couches, heads rested on shoulders. A few drifted off to sleep mid-sentence, but even in silence, something lingered, a closeness, a gentle awareness of each other. In the years that followed, you'd remember that night, not for what you did, but for what you finally said, for the stories that came out of the shadows, for the way a single night without electricity gave light to so many forgotten things. And in a world that so often encourages us to rush, scroll, and disconnect, that kind of stillness is the rarest thing of all. It's funny how much a single year can hold, and 2003, especially that summer, was bursting with moments we didn't realize we'd carry forever. Looking back now, it feels like it was the last stretch of something simple, something analog, something we could hold in our hands. You didn't scroll in 2003. You flipped, turned, clicked, and rewound. You didn't swipe to change the channel. You pressed down hard on rubbery buttons, trying not to miss the beginning of a music video on Much Music or MTV. The early 2000s had their own texture. You felt it in the heavy plastic of a flip phone, in the scratch of a burned CD label written in Sharpie, in the glow of a lava lamp beside your bed. Your desktop wallpaper was probably a photo of Avril Lavigne, a Matrix-style code pattern, or that Windows XP rolling green hill. You navigated life with MSN Messenger statuses, Hotmail accounts, and chain emails promising good luck if you forwarded them to 10 friends. Your ringtone might have been the Crazy Frog or the Nokia default, and you downloaded it after seeing a commercial on YTV or Teletoon with a code you had to text in. Data plans didn't exist. You played Snake. You charged your phone maybe once every 3 days. In the background of 2003, life was the pop culture that shaped us. Finding Nemo was in theaters, and everyone quoted, "Just keep swimming," without even thinking about it. Pirates of the Caribbean had just made Johnny Depp cool again, and Legolas posters were taped inside lockers thanks to The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. If you listened to the radio, you couldn't go an hour without hearing "Where is the Love" by the Black Eyed Peas or "Bring Me to Life" by Evanescence. Punk pop and emo were starting to creep into the mainstream, and you couldn't explain why. But Simple Plan just got you. You bought your music at HMV or waited for a friend to burn you a copy. If you were techie, you were using Winamp, customizing the skins to match your mood. You had a binder of CDs, maybe even one of those visor cases that flipped down from your car. TV was an event. You had to be there when it aired. You couldn't stream The OC or One Tree Hill. You set timers on your VCR and prayed nothing cut out early. And when something was worth watching, you talked about it for days. At school, at work, on the phone, reality TV had its grip on us. American Idol crowned Ruben Studdard that summer, while Clay Aiken became an overnight heartthrob. Newlyweds, Nick and Jessica debuted, giving us the infamous tuna chicken moment that somehow became meme-worthy before memes existed. We said things like, "That's hot," "faux shizzle," and "no duh." We wore puka shell necklaces, stretchy chokers, and jeans that barely held up, trucker hats, baby tees, cargo pants with way too many zippers. If you were heading to school in the fall, your backpack was loaded with gel pens, Lisa Frank folders, and maybe a TI-83 calculator if you were lucky. Your locker smelled like fruit-scented markers and whatever sandwich you forgot to throw out the week before. You still had a home phone with a cord. You memorized numbers or wrote them down in your school agenda. And when someone called your house, your mom answered first. And the internet? It was a place you visited, not something you lived in. You logged on, checked your email, maybe posted something on a forum or read a blog. Then you logged off and went outside. You hung out at the mall. You walked to the corner store. You stayed up late, talking on the phone until your ear was hot and your parents told you to hang up. That summer felt endless. The sunsets seemed longer, the air thicker with possibility. And then the blackout came. It didn't interrupt much, it just deepened the mood, gave the year a kind of punctuation mark. Without screens, the noise of 2003 faded into its purest form. The music, the conversations, the laughter, the way it felt to just be. You didn't realize it then, but you were living in a pocket of time that would become precious. A year filled with tech that still felt exciting, music that felt alive, and friendships that existed offline. A year that was loud, messy, weird, and perfect. And somehow, in the quiet of that August night, all of it, the songs, the slang, the smells, the feel of your flip phone in your hand, came rushing back. When the sun finally rose the next morning, it did so without the usual buzz and whir of machines booting up, coffee makers sputtering, or morning news anchors echoing from TVs. There was stillness, soft, slow, like the world was taking its time, stretching awake. The light seeped through the curtains, gently, warm and golden, landing on living rooms that still smelled faintly of melted candle wax and the last bag of chips opened the night before. You blinked into the quiet, unsure for a second if the power had come back while you slept. But then you noticed. The digital clock on the microwave still blinked 12 o'clock. The hum of the fridge hadn't returned. The world was still paused. But something had shifted. It wasn't just about electricity. The air felt different, lighter, less rushed. You wandered into the kitchen, barefoot, and poured yourself a glass of juice. No lights flicked on above the sink. No music started playing from your phone. You just stood there for a moment, the cool floor under your feet, the morning sun on your face, and listened. Birds outside. A dog barked. The neighbor's screen door creaked. Someone was watering their lawn by hand. Families slowly woke up and came together again, this time without candles, but still with that same sense of togetherness that had filled the rooms just hours before. People made breakfast the old-fashioned way, lighting stoves with matches, slicing fruit, buttering toast on frying pans instead of in toasters. There was conversation, shared glances, the occasional laugh about who had snored the loudest or burned the popcorn. You sat by the window and watched people emerge from their houses again. One neighbor waved with a coffee in hand. Another pushed a stroller. Kids rode bikes, real bikes, not scooters or hoverboards or electric things. They rode like we used to, freely, no phones in hand, no earbuds, just kids pedaling. You remembered mornings like this before everything was so digital. When mornings felt slow on purpose. When you had time to stare out the window and watch the light change. The radio still worked, though, and it became your touch point again. You turned it on and heard the latest. Power is returning to some areas, but full restoration could take time. They talked about how widespread it was, how Toronto, Ottawa, New York, and parts of the Midwest had all gone dark. But they also talked about how people had helped each other, passing water bottles, directing traffic by hand, checking on seniors, the humanity of it all. You felt strangely proud, not of yourself specifically, but of everyone, as if we had remembered in one night how to be a community. Stores began opening their doors without power. Some gave out ice cream that was melting too fast to save. Gas stations, unable to pump gas, handed out water bottles instead. Libraries, malls, and community centers became gathering places, not for buying things, but just to sit, to talk, to exist together. The blackout had knocked out more than just electricity. It had short-circuited our routines, and in doing so, it reset something inside us. You looked around your home, at the melted candles, the half-played board game still on the table, the cozy blanket you forgot to fold. And you felt it. Gratitude. Gratitude for the unexpected break, for the memories you'd made in silence, for the stillness that reminded you what connection felt like without screens. And as the day wore on and some power slowly returned, you noticed people hesitated before flipping things back on. They lingered in the analog glow a little longer. Some still sat outside. Some still used the matches. Some kept the radio playing, even though their phones were finally charging again. You kept one candle on the windowsill, just one, partly out of habit, but partly because you didn't want the feeling to go away completely. The world would be loud again soon, busy, bright. But for now, this soft, golden pause lingered, and it would stay with you, not in photos or posts, but in memory, in feeling, in your body's quiet recall of the morning you stepped into the sun, barefoot, juice in hand, and remembered what it meant to simply be. And now, as your body settles and your breathing slows, you find yourself resting in a moment that feels both far away and strangely familiar. The blackout may have lasted only a day or two, but the imprint it left, the emotional thumbprint on your memory, feels timeless. What started as a disruption became an invitation to return, to remember. You're not thinking about the power outage anymore. You're thinking about the soft light of the candles, the conversations that finally happened, the faces around you in the quiet, the way laughter echoed a little longer in a room without buzzing distractions. You're thinking about the way you felt waking up that morning, walking barefoot into the kitchen wrapped in stillness. You're thinking about the warmth of the sun on your face, the way it lit the dust particles dancing in the air, the way the radio seemed like a lifeline and a lullaby. And now, you are here, in your own quiet space, heart steady, eyes soft, breath calm. And you remember what it's like to just exist. No need to reach for your phone, no need to chase a task or tap a screen, because even though it's 2025 or beyond, and the world has moved on, some things never really leave us. The 2003 blackout isn't just a memory from the past. It's a reminder of what still lives inside you. That childlike joy of a candlelit living room, the quiet awe of watching the world slow down, that connection we rediscovered in the dark. We're so used to running, to doing, to filling every second. But that blackout reminded us of the beauty of being, of stopping, of sitting beside each other in a room and simply listening, simply being. As your eyes grow heavier, I want you to hold on to that feeling, the candle flickering just a little longer than expected, the hum of a faraway voice on the radio, the laughter that came easier in the dark. And I want you to remember that you can always return to that place, not in time, but in spirit. Every time you light a candle, every time you sit quietly and let your thoughts drift, every time you listen instead of scroll, you are safe, you are still, you are connected to the past, to yourself, and to the small, beautiful moments that shape our lives more than we realize. So breathe deep, let go of the day, and let the memory of 2003 carry you gently into sleep, like a warm blanket or a song you haven't heard in years, but still know all the words to. Tonight, the power doesn't need to come back on, because the light you found in the dark is still with you.